Hey, Marcy, you still there? Did your video turn off?
Camera around.
Well, welcome everybody. Well, there it is. Got it. I'm sorry for the organ music on that video, that countdown video. It was a little church sounding. My bad, and then it just clicked your video off.
Yeah,
Hey everybody.
next time a lot jazzier.
Right. Hey everybody. So yeah, me and Marcy have been. If you enjoy the conversation now, we're going to head over to TikTok afterwards and continue the conversation. We tried to set it up to do all of it all at once, and we did a lot of time, and we're still learning technology. And at least for me, I am a little older, so I don't always. I do act like somebody's grandma sometimes, but welcome everyone. We're going to have a really good discussion about Texas youth prisons. Super vital, important topic as we approach the legislative session. And my name is Jennifer Toon. I work at the Coalition of Texans with Disabilities. I work at the intersection of disabilities and mental health and the criminal justice system, with a heavy focus on the juvenile system. I also am a co-founder of Lioness, Justice Women's. I'm a little thrown off right now. I've had a lot of coffee. The cat's going crazy. Lioness, Justice Impacted Women's Alliance. So I'm really grateful for everybody to be here, that we can share the campaign with you that we're working on. And I'll let Marcy introduce herself to everybody.
Hey y'all, I'm Marci Simmons, and thank you for followed me over here. I see a couple of y'all from TikTok. We tried to get it all working together, work out. So we will head back over there when we're finished here, like Jennifer said, for a decade in the Texas prison system. And I came home and started sharing on social media, and TikTok, it kind of just took off from there, and we have there. And I am now working on a Rosie O'Donnell that should come out next year. It's going to highlight some of the Texas prison system. And then I'm also an advocate. I'm on the steering that Jennifer was talking about, which is Lioness, Justice Impacted Women's Alliance. Here, I'm so excited to be part of this discussion. I have kind of honesty. I'm cutting out a little bit. Okay, let me see if I can maybe bit. I don't know how I would fix that. I turned my volume up, connection. I'm connected as best as I can be. Am I choppy for you, Jennifer?
A little bit.
Okay.
A little bit, but hey, we're going to get through it, and the devil is a lie. The forces that try to stop us having this conversation are just they're not going to happen today. So we'll do the best we can with the technology we have, and looks like Marcy popped off for a minute. But we're gonna talk about the Texas youth system. So the Texas youth system has a long history of violence and neglect. So the first juvenile courts started around 1899. So we're looking at a long history of youth justice in the state of Texas. We've got over 100 years of scandals, reforms. So the first juvenile facilities were created in the early 1900s, and they were in areas across Texas and very rural areas, and they were predominantly used for youth labor. Marcy's saying she's frozen. Hold on one second. Let me try to get her back. Okay, I'm sorry, you guys. The technology has not been what it should be today. I apologize. So she will be back on in just a minute. So the Texas youth system um, facilities were started back in the 1900s, and they were predominantly used for slave labor. Children, usually children, black and brown children, and children with intellectual and developmental disabilities were often the children in these facilities. And that is a consistent theme throughout the 100 years of history of the Texas youth system. What we see through the decades, 1910, there was a big scandal involving staff beating children with bats. 1920s, you saw more scandals. There was actually a murder. A staff member actually murdered a 15-year-old that wouldn't participate in drills and labor. In the 40s, again, you see whippings, beatings, children used as slave labor. And this perpetuates through the 60s, the 70s, and 80s. I see Marci. There she is. Hey.
Hey, I'm so sorry. Oh my
It's
goodness.
okay.
Here on my iPad, laptop, whatever's going to work, because am I still really choppy?
There's a slight delay, but it's not bad. I don't think it's bad unless the viewers are just really having a hard time with it, but I don't think it's bad. So we'll just have to take some real pauses in between speaking to each other so that the sound catches up. Yeah, I told everybody Marci's coming back as quickly as she can. Again, the devil is a lie. I don't know what's going on with. Normally this goes pretty smoothly, but Wi-Fi is not wanting to cooperate. Computers, technology not wanting to cooperate. So I was letting everyone know that Texas has a long history, over 100 years of violence and neglect in its youth system, with the first juvenile courts happening in 1899, and then the first facilities popping up in rural communities in the early 1900s. And what we see is there will be huge scandal, beatings, whippings, sexual abuse, and then you see an outcry from the public. There will be reform efforts, and then there'll be more abuse, reform, abuse, and it's the same reform tactics every time. Staff increases, staff retention, more programming, all the same measures, and it's just a repeated cycle. And those advocates that are watching right now, you know that the current situation in the Texas Juvenile Justice Department, it has gone by many names over the decades. I was there when it was called the Texas Youth Commission. But it is now called TJJD, the Texas Juvenile Justice Department. And these kids are locked in their rooms. They often don't get out for bathroom breaks because there's no bathrooms in their cells. And a plethora of sexual abuse scandals. The Department of Justice is now investigating Texas's juvenile justice system. So Marci, I know that you don't have experience in the juvenile system, but you do have experience at Lane Murray in Gatesville for almost, it was a decade, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So I really want you to tell people what was that experience like, incarceration? What was the conditions of confinement like? What type of traumas did you experience as an adult in the system?
30 years old when I got incarcerated. So I was I felt like I definitely had a lot more life experience for any kind of traumatic event. I feel like a third equipped to handle any kind of traumatic event, and it certainly broke me. To be warehoused and caged mentally, that tells you So it tells you, that environment tells you that you're not not worthy. It very much of any self-esteem you have. So I'm just thinking about because that's the way that a lot of the youth are housed, and so I spend about half cells compared to a dorm life. Living in it's there's graffiti all over the walls. There's graffiti in the form of cries for help. There's graffiti of inmates trying to encourage, make a lighter message, a religious message, or messages of hope for the people that might, because it's a very sense of hopelessness and despair. I hadn't really thought about you until pretty recently, because it's so much just go to the people that I actually knew and that are still incarcerated, harsh living environments, and then to think that children are living that way, it's almost too much. It's easy sight out of mind. But when we have that kind of attitude, nothing changes, and we can't just keep leaving these kids in there.
All the things that we endured in Gatesville, and I see that Veronica's on here, and she says that, I was in G5 custody at Mountain View when the girl hung herself. I wrote a piece about that in the Marshall Project and how that affected us, and was able to see the officers give her CPR until they declared her deceased. And so you imagine, like you said, you see these things as an adult and how heavy those things are, how heavy incarceration is for a 30-year-old woman. What do we expect? That children are experiencing these same traumas in worse facilities, like Lane Murray compared to Ron Jackson or Giddings is I don't want to say the Hilton. I mean, it's not that good, but it's far more controlled and structured than these over 100 years old facilities, where deep racial hatred, abuse, and sexual abuse has happened. And you'd sent me a video this morning, and please share his name, because his name escapes me.
His name is Jesse Crossan, and he's second chancer, and he did 19 years in Virginia, and he actually got granted clemency.
Yeah, and he had a great video this morning talking about, hey, I just come out of the youth facility, the youth detention, and this is where we have children, and the same kind of setup is looking a lot like our schools too. Like, this is where we put children, and we expect them to thrive and grow and to be rehabilitated and educated. How in the world do we expect children to function in these environments? So what can you say, Marci, to maybe people that are watching this, that maybe they have no criminal justice involvement, but they're a mom? What could you say to mothers out there who could be the catalyst to help us in our campaign to reach legislators to really fix this problem? What are some things that you would like to say to other moms about the youth system in Texas?
You touched touched on that mommy chord, middle school daughters. First, I just want to say how easy for an adult to get caught up in something or to be with someone of criminal activity and end up in trouble themselves. It happens all the educated people making poor decisions. And I want you the decisions you made when you were a kid and some of the crazy stuff. I mean, it seems like I can't believe I didn't die when this happened. And it's just that same kind of the pack or making a really bad decision and how easy that could be for to end up in that situation. And if your child ended up there, how do you think they should be treated? Become still a responsible, loving, caring way that we're housing these kids. It does not promote that kind of thing. So yeah.
What were the things, and I'm thinking about what you just shared, like, you know, is we're wanting children to heal and be rehabilitated, because that's what the youth system is supposed to focus on, rehabilitation, where the adult system typically puts punishment first, right? But what are the things in your life that have helped you recover from the things that, you know, that you endured in prison, or perhaps maybe helped you heal the things that took you to prison? What are the positive things? How did that look for you, like therapy or programming? And when did you receive it, and how effective was it in whatever setting it was in?
Most of any kind of support that I got, healing and moving forward with my life, came from other inmates in an effort to encourage each other. I think that I was able to offer that. Some ladies in there as well. As far as program, Jennifer, I went all the way to the psych hospital, incarceration. And so I received the maximum amount of can as an adult incarcerated in Texas. That caused more trauma. The of getting that help, getting to the point where you can actually receive that help, including in a concrete room with and blood on the wall, with no bed, just a metal supposed to sleep, with no toilet paper, with if you're on your cycle there, you're naked, one maxi pad, and you have to hand over your dirty one, open new one. It was just completely humiliating full process. I did not get healing from anything within that institution. There's nothing in place right now. Now I got out in 2021, so in range that I have no knowledge of, there's nothing that promotes that kind of healing life.
Yeah. So the reason I ask is because you pretty much nailed it, right? Like any type of effective care, right? Especially in terms of like therapy, trauma informed care, the type of medical treatment and really deep mental health treatment and community care that children especially would need in crisis. The setting matters. The setting matters, and many of us have told, you know, TJJD officials and legislators We've said that about the adult system. When you want people to do educational programming, but it's 145 degrees in the room, in the cell, or in the school building. I know at Henley, when we did our groups, it was 110 degrees in the group room. How effective is treatment when you're trying to survive? And the setting matters. And like you said, incarceration, carceral settings, buildings, cages, especially the ones that have this long-term energy of abuse and neglect. How do you expect human beings to process any of that? Like you said, when we go to when you're at the psych center in TDCJ, there is no, how am I going to process anything any of these counselors would even try to do when I'm naked in this cell, covered in blood, and usually the floor has feces on it, and it's either extremely hot or extremely cold. And it's really used as a way to deter us from seeking any type of treatment, right? And so I just really want the audience to think about that if adults have such difficulty being able to process care in carceral settings, imagine a child. And I heard somebody say one time, well, these kids are dangerous. They don't have any empathy, and they're empty, and which always makes me extremely angry, because I'm like, well, I was one of those kids. And when you treat children that are already have adverse childhood trauma, that they come into the youth system, and then you treat them like animals, and all they're doing is surviving, well, no wonder they're acting like feral animals, because that's what you're treating them like. So it's a long history of abuse and cycles of reform that have come to no avail. So it's time to do something radically different. And so I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about how you were introduced to the Finish the Five campaign, something that we've been working on with our different coalitions, and why you felt that it was important to be involved.
Definitely, I'd love to. And I think you just talked about so many about how the carceral environment desensitizes, and definitely youth are more impressionable. I think there's definitely something to be said. You can see in an adult inmates like stages, and I went through all of it, of a privileged dorm where they have less interaction, officers, all the way to medium custody, is as far as you're in a cell and you're talked down to a lot more often. See the group of adults, how they act in different situations. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm sorry, guys. But you can see how you will see the same inmate in a privileged dorm acting like you would think a normal person should act, and that very same person can be in mediums and they start acting accordingly, and we're just a prod environment, right? So I got involved with the Finish the Five really, and Maggie Luna, who she's with the statewide leadership council. I was really, like I said, I've kind of been avoiding tough topics, but there was an article in the Texas Tribune that talked about these babies. They're in cells and they don't have a restroom, so they have to be physically let out of the room to go to the bathroom. And this article talked about them having to use water bottles or I'm sorry if I'm cutting out, y'all, but to go to the restroom because issues or whatever the reason the officers aren't letting them out. And read that, I was like, yeah, that's a wrap. I have to part, or I won't be able to sleep at night.
Yeah. Yeah. And you and I had kind of told you this morning when I watched Second Chancer's video. A lot of times those of us who are formerly incarcerated, who are adults, and a lot of the other criminal justice advocates, they forget about the juvenile system because, well, maybe I don't have experience there, or maybe it's been so long, or whatever the reason is. Or maybe they just don't feel like they have enough information because juveniles have certain different rules and policies. But at the end of the day, right? You and I both know what it feels like to not be able to go to the bathroom because somebody won't let you out of your cell, or not be able to get water, or not be able to get food because they're short-staffed, or staff are just being jerks, or someone's trying to manipulate you into getting favors. So, all kinds of reasons that we were treated inhumanely in the adult system. And to imagine that happens to children, it's like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing? And so I think it's really, really important to be able to reach our other criminal justice, formerly incarcerated folks and their families, to really learn about what's going on in our youth system and see how that parallels the adult system and how it feeds the adult system. We talk a lot about the school to prison pipeline. A lot of the stuff that happens at schools feed children into the juvenile justice system. And part of our campaign and the legislation will be to decriminalize. So let's talk a little bit about the solutions, right? Because people will say, okay, wait a minute, finish the 5. Y'all want to close these 5 state facilities down. Well, if we don't incarcerate children, well, what do? We start treating, this like a health issue, a public health issue. And in 2007, when there was the round of scandals at that time, when the Texas Rangers were involved, and it was legislators shaking their fists saying, we're not going to stand for this, we decriminalized some things. We got the population down from in the thousands to 600. We closed a couple of facilities. So this is not all that radical because Texas has done this before. We just need to pick up where we left off and continue the push forward to get even a smaller group of children, just the bare group of children that need really intensive care, and get them into safe settings under Health and Human Services. So, what would it meant for you, Marci, when you were incarcerated, to have been receiving treatment and care in a different setting, right? Like, of course, there are different standards of accountability with adults, right? But in terms of receiving the treatment and care you needed to be a better person, what would it have meant for you to have been able to do that closer to home, closer to your community, and with real medical staff or therapists?
Me what that would have looked like, or the difference it would have made for me.
Yeah. What? Yeah.
It would have made a massively huge my personal experience, because honestly, I was able to keep my for about 4 years, but all of that each traumatic event just kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And by the middle of that, I had completely lost it. I had complete breakdown. So I was not improving as a person. Period. If I had gotten home that 3rd year, been a survivor, I don't think that I would have. I might have been making better decisions, there would not have been a better person inside, because it did not. For me, if I had come into a situation where the environment about finding the root of the problem, and not just punishing the crime, but finding the root of why the crime happened, it was offering mental health care. I think it just such a difference, not only on me, Jennifer, but my entire family would have benefited from that, because it was just such a struggle for everyone. Yeah, to finish the five project, this is an opportunity to change. It's not just about a handful of kids. There's 600 kids incarcerated in very harsh, scary living conditions, that rehabilitation, that do not promote even acting, and it's very dehumanizing conditions.
Yeah, right. And like you said, this doesn't just affect the kids; it affects their family. And when you, like you said, it's you used a key word, and that's surviving, right? Like survival. So when those kids are focused on survival, whatever type of really great trauma-based informed care that TJJD may offer them, it's not going to happen in those settings. It's just not. Children have to feel safe. They have to be able to trust you. And the hand that beats me cannot be the hand that feeds me. And you expect me to trust you. And as a kid in the system, I remember, Marci, one time they had locked us in our rooms for many days as punishment for something trivial. And they took everything out of our room, everything. We were naked in these rooms, teenage girls. There was a lot of sexual abuse at that unit too. And they would slip tissue. We were fortunate that our dorm had bathrooms in them, and they would slip tissue under the door sometimes for us to use the restroom, but we had nothing in there. We were sleeping on the metal bed frame, nothing in this room. And there were days that we didn't always eat as punishment too. And so when they finally decide that they're going to let us out, have y'all behaved, now we're all going to go in the group room. And I remember a friend of mine, we had been through so many case managers that they would stay for a week and then they'd leave. They're not putting up with the crap that happens at these places. And it affects them. Like the recent article where staff were saying, hey, it's not pay raises, it's the culture. It's what we're trying to deal with. And I left the facility because I can't take it. And I remember us being in this group room, and my friend had told her life story, which included a lot of her sexual abuse, to 5 different case managers in the group 5 different times. And she was like, I cannot take this anymore. I can't take this anymore. And we all decided, well, fuck them. I'm not participating in any of this crap. You just locked me in my room for a week, naked, pissing on ourselves without tissue, and sometimes not eating to punish us. And now you want me to sit in here and tell you the same abusive story about my life. And so we all agreed that when they walked in, we were just going to sit there. And I remember they just kept getting angrier and angrier because we were defiant. We were like, I don't trust you. And they put us back in our rooms. And this was the cycle of stuff that would happen there. And to get out after all these years and think that when I was a kid in that system, I really just thought it was us, that nobody had any idea that this kind of stuff happens here. Of course, as a kid, you think that you deserve it because you did something bad to be there. So you essentially are bad. And then to get out and read the material that we're utilizing for the campaign, and to see that this has been going on for 100 years. And somebody could have stopped this before I got there, or maybe I would have never been there. And to know that it still goes on, it makes me I can't sleep. I have nightmares when I really start digging into TYC stuff, because the things they did to us are me going on to prison twice is a direct result of all the crap that happened to me there. No treatment and abuse upon abuse upon abuse. And how did that prepare me for society? It trained me to survive in the only ways that I know how. And that's not an excuse, but that is a direct outcome of the horrid things that happen in those facilities. And, a lot of times TDCJ or TJJD will say, well, things have changed. Oh, things have changed. It's been a long time since you've been there. Well, I can't tell. Looks like the same shit keeps happening. I'm sorry, I'm getting cranked up. I got to rein it in. But it's I'm so excited to see other formerly incarcerated women involved in this, because it's our kids, and many of us were girls in those facilities together. So I love that you're a part of this, because you bring so much value to the campaign, and all the wonderful people that follow your platform. Because it affects us all, and until our kids are healed, they're our future. And if we don't provide them with the healing that they need, then things are going to get worse, and rightfully so, when we continue to treat our children the way that we do. So is there anything else that you want to add about the campaign that you hope? What are some ways that you think that some folks can get involved? Maybe folks that follow you on your platform. What are some ways they can get involved?
Well, first, I want to, Blair's asking, it's called Finish the 5. And Jennifer, you know the logistics, what exactly. So you have to be that. I want to help that we can do is we can write our local lawmakers and get rid of these last 5. That's why it's called Finish the 5. Last 5 youth prisons. It's a youth prison is what it is, kind of word they put on it. It's a prison for kids. And we want those last 5 closed. We available. I want to read Ashley's comment. First, we were incarcerated with, that's popped up on here. And my other community here, thank y'all so much. But Ashley says more than half the people I know that went into TY came out even worse. Instead of rehabilitating, they are causing more damage. It's sad. And I think that says it all. Hurt people. So when we're children, they're hurt people. It's been proven time and time again, and continue that cycle. Something has to break. So guys, help. How can we help? We can definitely write our lawmakers. We can definitely and join the efforts to spread awareness. We can definitely show up at Austin. Show up. So what do you think, Jennifer? What do we need to do? You tell us.
Yeah, so you're already on the right track. Like, people have got to let their representatives know. It's not just the representatives and the senators that sit on these committees. It's your representative, and so I can provide some links that are real easy to find who represents you in your county, in your city, and reach out to them about, finish the 5. Let's close these facilities down and get kids into community care. And when people ask for those solutions, well, what do we do after we close them? Well, I'll tell you, because we've done it before. We decriminalize things that are childhood issues that shouldn't be crimes, like addiction, truancy, those types of things. And getting kids into community care, like the first program in Harris County, Ariana helps with that program. And it really makes sure that kids are getting into care and not just getting arrested and put into the system. It's a wonderful program, and it's one of the models that we're using to help with our strategy on closing these facilities. Write your representatives. Join the coalition. We have a broad coalition for Finish the 5 that me and Marci are a part of. It is led by Austin Liberation Youth Movement. This is a powerful youth movement that is really championing the campaign. Also, the Texas Center for Justice and Equity, the Coalition of Texans with Disabilities, and many other organizations. We meet. We're going to start meeting every week on Wednesdays in the evening, and we'll have work groups that focus on research, outreach, protesting, to really get a concentrated strategy and effort to tackle this when session starts. Session will begin, the legislative session will begin in the middle of January, so it is quickly approaching. And if you can't come to the Capitol to testify, because anybody can testify on a bill, we'll keep you up to date. But if you can't come, guess what? There are other things you can do. You can share on social media. You can be a part of these discussions, and you can continue to just spread the word about what's really happening in these facilities, and share with people that there's a new vision to start treating this as the public health issue that it is, and start getting our kids into real safe settings with real treatment, and not perpetuating the cycle of violence. Because you know what? Ashley is correct. I came out far worse than I went in, and I wasn't doing well when I went in, and I needed real mental health treatment. And all I did was learn how to survive. And those ways of survival, I perpetuated more harm when I got out. For some people, some legislators and some people will say, well, this is evidence that these people are just inherently bad. They get out and they do more stuff. Well, they get out and they harm themselves and others because of what was going on as a child in these facilities. I mean, how do you expect people to behave if they've been treated this way? They don't know another way other than the abuse that they've survived. So I'll send all the links to you that you can share with your people. I hear your dog is giving you the business right now.
Dog opened the back door and now they're all here. So, actually, and this is a great, send me the links. If I can centralize those to once, I can put it on my link tree for people. So
okay.
I sometimes when I've been involved with any kind of campaign, like your immediate vision, the people getting arrested, holding signs, and it doesn't have to, there might be some actual protests, and that does happen, but to be that doesn't have to be your level of participation. If that you want to be involved, but you're not like ready to go down that path, you can definitely, there's so many. So what I would just love to do is make sure, and I can do that by tomorrow. I'll have in my bio on all of my platforms so that you can join that. The other just thought was so about being inherently evil. And this is something that is kind of a stigma around incarcerated, right? Mm-hmm. Someone that has never been in trouble legally and never been in trouble legally, they don't realize, they might have it in their mind, okay, well, they're bad, that's why they're there. And, mm-hmm. and I think that's fairly common. And even my very parents told me when I was a child, we passed a federal prison, and I heard them saying, well, that's the big prison where I don't even remember who, but it was some crazy. And I said, what's a prison? What is that? And my mom, who is the hippie lady you could ever meet, said that's where the bad people go. Mm-hmm. And that was her answer of what she thought. But after spending a decade in the prison system, all of those incarcerated ladies who are people that just made a bad self in the wrong place at the wrong time, or had some kind of gave into their substance abuse addiction, the way you see those women as a community and encourage one another and build one another up, it clear very quickly that prison is not where the bad people go.
Right.
Prison is where people go, hurt people go, and that's just kind of how that goes. That's what someone, I think Blair was asking, what kind of charges does it take to get arrested as a youth in prison? And it's not a lot. The charges, there are some extreme cases, but honestly, there are some very minor handled so differently than caging them in this environment, creating more future violence.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And you, again, and that's part of the solution, is to continue to decriminalize so many things that children are charged with that, sometimes adults are not even charged with, or they're just manifestations of addiction or mental health. And again, I tell people the population that consistently has remained in our Texas youth system are Black and brown children and children with disabilities. And, I told legislators during the summer, I said, I know we want to focus on solutions, but until we really understand what the core problem is, how are we going to implement the solutions? And the core problem is, why are this same group of children being put in the juvenile justice system? Up to 90% of kids had some form of intellectual and developmental disabilities in the 1920s, 30s, Marci. And you look now, and it's 60 to 80% of those kids with mental health and IDD are the children that are there, with the majority being, with high racial disparities. And it's like, we need to really look at what is Texas's belief about these particular children, that they continue to be incarcerated like this. And it often begins in the community and schools, when these children are subjected to more arrest, to more restraints, and to more systematic violence there. So I love the discussion. We're almost out of time here, and we'll pop over and continue it over on TikTok. So your fans were super patient with us earlier, and I want to make sure that they get the information too. But is there anything else you would like to add before we close it out here?
Well, I just was at Lane Murray. She said she did a lot of time in ADSEG, which is the whole, and she said she came home just fine, that she knows a lot of people that have come out on the successful end. And I just wanted to say the fact is the rate is 76%. 76% of people that get released reoffend within 5 years. Yes, we know a huge amount of success stories. Makes my heart so happy when we see someone succeed. We want to make more people finish. The 5 project is about youth, helping these youth to lower that recidivism rate all the way around. That's my goal. But as far as talking about these kids that are even more impressionable, then we want to change the way we can, and this is our opportunity, right? So, but I see lots of success stories, and I love seeing them all for sure. But I'm ready to hop ready, and if anybody is on here that wants to continue talking with us, there, it's Marci Marie 114. Jennifer, what's your
Jennifer Toon 4.
Okay. Either one of our pages, and we'd love to see you there.
Okay, well, thank you everybody here. My apologies for any technical issues. Yes. I take full responsibility because this is my restreaming, and it just we figured it out. It'll get better and better. So we appreciate your patience, and please continue to follow us and get updates about Finish the 5, so we can free Texas kids and get them home into their communities and get them to real healing. So thank you, everybody. We'll see you over on TikTok.
Sounds good.
Okay, bye.